But I'm super excited that you guys are here. All I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be talking about the internship that I completed last semester. And I'm currently in the process of getting credit for that under, of course, professional development. So again, my name is Jasmin Paquet-Durand Ford, and this is my presentation. So just a little bit about me before we get started. So I am a sophomore, currently pursuing my undergraduate in economics through the College of Business. My hometown is San Ignacio, Belize. I grew up there ages 3 to 18, and so it's definitely home for me. Some of my hobbies are hiking, swimming, camping, just being outside, love playing the piano and any kind of crafts. Fun fact, I speak German. So if any of you guys are taking a German class and you need someone to practice with, hit me up. I speak German. Extracurriculars, I am involved in Student Government Association. I'm a senator for the College of Business there. I'm a student representative on the Sustainability Council. I'm just joined the UTSA Community Garden. I am a climate reality leader, and I'm a part of the UTSA Pre-Law Association. Now, my dream career is in climate policy and law. And so in order to pursue that, my postgraduate plans are to pursue law degrees, so a JD, as well as a master's in public policy. They have a dual degree program for that. Now, I say all of this, not just to talk about myself, but it really kind of emphasizes my goal for honors. So, oh, and by the way, I didn't say this and I apologize, but there is going to be a Q&A at the end. So if anyone has any questions about anything along the way, just go ahead and write it down and I will be happy to field any and all questions as we go along. When we get to the Q&A session. So my goal for honors is to kind of reconcile this trio of, business undergraduate, passionate about the environment, but, I really want to pursue a career in law and policy. And of course, those are all very much related, but, it can be kind of tough to bring those all together. The Honors College really provides me an opportunity to do that because of these experiences, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And this internship that I completed was a perfect example of that. So in the fall 2020 semester, I had an internship with Congressman Lloyd Doggett. He represents the 35th district. So it's here in San Antonio, but it actually stretches all the way along the I-90 corridor and goes to Austin. So I was doing 12 hours per week for 16 weeks in the San Antonio district office. Of course, it was virtual, which was a very interesting experience. And I'll talk about some of the challenges, but also some of the benefits that came with that. And I was working in a team of 4, along with one other intern who was actually also an honors college student, because we're great, obviously. So why I chose this particular experience. Now, when you're going about choosing your experiences, we all have our own passions. We have our own goals. And so it's really important that you think critically about why you choose each experience. For me personally, this internship gave me the opportunity to explore that marriage between my business undergraduate, my policy and law aspirations, and my passion for the environment. Because the congressman actually was a business undergraduate, went to law school, works in policy, of course, and is very passionate about the environment. And that was one of his key issues. So I really felt myself or a similar path represented in the congressman. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to intern here. Another one is advocacy and representation. So again, kind of going back to my personal goals, I am a senator in Student Government Association, but I'm also a student representative on the Council of Sustainability. And the responsibility that comes with being a representative, I don't take that lightly. I think it's definitely something to take seriously. And so I was hoping to gain some insight into the responsibility that comes with being a representative, but also, how to kind of embrace that and how to really make sure that you feel you're doing your constituents justice. And then the last reason, of course, is because, come on, it's an internship, right? That hands-on professional experience. During my time there, I was able to practice my written and verbal skills through drafting social media legislation, through email correspondence, etc. I conducted just a little bit of research, mostly like market research, just small reports, but nonetheless, I was really able to kind of engage that intellectual dexterity. And then special projects. So I was able to spearhead several special projects, and I was really kind of given that creative freedom, which was an incredible experience in terms of professional development. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about how this whole process kind of came along. So the first step, of course, was discovering this opportunity. And I know, as a peer coach, I hear all the time, where on earth do I even start? And this can be tricky. And of course, if you are ever having any problems figuring out an experience, come to a peer coach. We are here to help. We will assist. But for me personally, the way that I discovered my opportunity was through connection. It was actually through our very own Dr. Chapman and through Monday messages. Guys, Monday messages, 10 out of 10, read them. I have found so many incredible opportunities and scholarships in there because it was advertised. And I saw this and I was like, hey, that looks really cool. Let me look into this some more, which was step 2, doing research. It was really, really critical that I do my research on the Congressman, his initiatives, what he stands for, his voting history, etc. And I also tried to do some research into past interns, those job websites that you can kind of like leave a review of the employer. I found one of those had positive reviews. And then I just read his wiki page, tried to get to know more about the Congressman and his history, what he really stands for, what his office was like, just overall get an understanding of what I'm potentially getting myself into. Now, the next stage was sending over my application. This included a cover letter, a resume, and a writing sample. The cover letter and resume, I worked with our very own Dr. Chapman to develop that, but I also worked with the UTSA Career Center, and they helped me build a resume that I was really confident about and that was succinct, not 3 pages long, only 1 page long. I didn't run on proper grammar. All of those things are super duper important. And so I made sure to utilize the resources that I had available. And then my writing sample was actually just an essay that I wrote from my freshman composition class. So never be afraid to just recycle things like that. I sent over this application through an email. About a week later, I sent a follow-up email, and that led to my first interview, which was over the phone. Now, keeping in mind, of course, this is a virtual internship, so things were kind of different. The first interview was over the phone, and these were some really tough questions. The questions were along the lines of, well, what is it about the Congressman that makes you want to work with him? Okay, what are some issues that you really care deeply about? Where do you see yourself lining up with the office culture, And at this point, I was super duper glad that I had done my research, because if I had not done my research before even applying, I would have looked like a fool. Fortunately, because of that research, I think I was able to handle that pretty well, at least well enough to be offered a second interview. Now, this second interview happened just a few days later, and it was a video call with the team to get to know me. They were just basically trying to see how I fit in with the office culture, if you will. And this is definitely something really important to keep in mind whenever you're seeking out opportunities, especially in a professional setting. Do your research. Is this a place that you want to be? Because if it's not a place that you want to be, chances are, maybe it just doesn't fit. And they have every right to kind of have that same vetting process with you. So that's a part that I don't think gets talked about quite enough, is making sure, okay, is this really what I want, through your research? And then the last step was recommenders. So they actually called all 3 of my recommenders that I had listed. And I really want to emphasize this right here. They told me straight up that the thing that really pushed me across the finish line, the thing that really helped me stand out, was these recommenders, and that every single one of them had given fantastic raving reviews. I mean, obviously. But recommenders, I think sometimes, at least in my experience, it's a secondary thought. Oh yeah, okay, well, who can recommend me? All right, well, what about this professor? Y'all, Be selective about who you choose to be your recommenders, because they can and they will be the make or break. They can absolutely be that last thing. I got this internship because I was very careful about who I chose to be my recommenders. So this is a little bit about the process from start to finish, discovering the opportunity to the recommenders, and then they called me right after calling all my recommenders and offered me the position, which is very exciting. I'm going to talk a little bit about the learning outcomes. I know we've all filled out those little worksheets and circled agency through accomplishment or creative courage, but I'm going to talk about what that really means, when you're in it. So agency through accomplishment is defined as gaining self-confidence by delivering outcomes of high quality. I gained agency through accomplishment through what I was talking about previously, those special projects. So often whenever we are working, it's confined. But in this setting, I was really able to develop myself professionally by spearheading these projects. And whenever I completed them and I would get that feedback, whether it was constructive criticism or positive feedback, that really gave me a sense of accomplishment, and it gave me a sense of confidence, which is hard to gain without that hands-on experience. The next thing is it gave me creative courage as well. Same thing, sometimes I'm told, all right, do X, Y, and Z. But having that creative courage for me to explore and then experience success really gave me a lot of courage in that sense as well. And then the final aspect was communicating effectively. Oh, sorry. This, with it being a virtual setting, a virtual internship, it was incredibly important that I was able to communicate effectively, because we weren't in person. I was sitting at home on my laptop and they were sitting in their homes on their laptop. So being able to communicate with them whenever I was experiencing difficulties, whenever I had questions, whenever I was confused, that was a really important part. And I thought I knew how important it was to communicate effectively. But after completing a virtual internship, it is everything. So those were a few of the learning outcomes and how those really applied. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the challenges and guidance. Some of the challenges, it was a virtual setting, so getting that real-time feedback was not a thing. Sometimes it would be a while before I heard back. And again, just falling back on that effective, consistent communication. Technical difficulties are a thing. Your internet goes out. At one point, my computer charger just disappeared and my computer died. I had to go buy a new one at the Apple store. I've said it 100 times, but the important thing here was just letting them know exactly what was going on, letting them know what these challenges are and communicating with them. Because what I found was whenever I was open with that communication, that helped build an environment where they understood and they felt comfortable letting me know, what's going on their end as well, because that's a critical aspect. The next challenge, time management. We talk about work-life balance, right? How about work, life, internship, school? We're honor students, right? We know what this is like. It's tough. It is really, really tough to manage your time effectively whenever you're balancing so many different things. And so this was definitely one of my biggest challenges, figuring out how to balance everything. And it was tough. It was really tough. But in retrospect, those were some of the most important lessons that I learned, was managing my time effectively and learning really what takes priority. The places that I sought guidance to overcome these challenges were the honors counselors. Guys, we have the most incredible team of honors counselors, and I went to every single one of them at least once, if not 2 or 3 or 4 times, whether it was to talk about my school, my grades, or to talk about the internship, or to talk about work, whatever it was. And time again, they were able to give me really solid advice and assistance and help me identify resources that maybe I didn't even know existed. Also my academic advisor, so your college advisor, she was very helpful, helping me figure out how to schedule everything and where to fit everything in. It's important to know your resources. So, I used the Career Center and Dr. Chapman in the beginning of this experience to get it and to develop my resume. the peer coaches. We are here to help you guys. We love meeting with students. We love honor students. We love talking to you guys. And we're here to help in any way that we can. And even if we're not equipped to handle the situation, we can probably help you figure out who might be. Check out your college, see what resources they have. The College of Business has its own career services. I've definitely used that. Just do some research. Friends and family, moral support, incredibly important. And then, yeah, communication with team. Again, talking to my internship coordinator and just letting them know what was going on and letting them know, hey, I'm having this problem. And they were super duper helpful and always happy that I reached out to let them know what was going on so that, we could figure out how do we move forward from this. So those are challenges and guidance. The next is Q&A. Yes. So just to kind of finish everything up, this was all last semester. I'm currently filled out the form that you have to fill out whenever you want to get credit for an experience that you've done outside of the classroom. That is a non-designated activity. I've been talking to Mr. Brent Lloyd all along the way, making sure that everything's good. I'm handing in my form and I will be presenting at the ELF this year, or this semester rather. So that is my internship with Congressman Lloyd Doggett, total of 176 hours time on task. It was a lot. It was fun. I loved it. Does anyone have any questions whatsoever about the experience, professional development, gaining credit for an experience, anything like that? You're welcome to drop it in the chat or just unmute yourself and let us know. Yes, cover letter with honors. Are there scholarships offered for being in the program? Which program in particular are you referring to? The Honors College? Yes, so I'd be happy to field this, but Dr. Chapman, if you wanted to touch on this really quickly.
Yeah, sure. So we have a few different types of scholarships. We have Honors College scholarships that are offered every year. I think students apply in February. Is when it opened just recently. But we also have what's called the Development Award, and that helps students design experiences that might have additional costs. So some examples include students publishing, which costs money sometimes. Other examples in the past have been students attending conferences, which have registration fees. So we do have 2 times each semester, the Development Awards will open up for applications. One deadline just passed, but the next one is March 1. So if you go to the Honors website and look up Development Award, we have a page on it. And we have examples on how to apply to them. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, I just wanted to ask Jasmin, okay, so with the internship, you described some of the tasks you were doing. We know that internships can be both amazing and at times also kind of tedious, or you might be completing lower level tasks. Can you give us an example of like what was the nicest task or most fulfilling task that you did, and then also kind of on the other end, what was kind of the most basic task that they had you do during this internship, so we get a sense of the whole range of things, both good and bad, or big and small.
Sure, yeah. So I think some of my favorite things were definitely the special projects. And so they actually asked me at the beginning of the internship what my interests were. And I said, policy, environment, environmental protections, human rights, just kind of gave them a general idea. And so anytime there was anything regarding that, they would push it my way. And so I got to spearhead a particular project, actually, that was, I think the one that was most meaningful was a COVID resource document. So they had constituents calling in every single day, trying to seek assistance with rent or, with being evicted or food insecurity, all of these, really tough things that we're going through right now. And it felt, it felt very now, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so I was able to create this massive document where I had to spend hours and hours researching different resources. And overall, I was just really amazed at how much the San Antonio community had come together, because the resources that I compiled was everything from, city grants and aid to it's a couple and they have a little bit of extra money and, they're giving it out. So that was one of the bigger projects. And I really got to explore kind of my creative side because I got to completely just take it on from whatever aspect I wanted. One of the more menial tasks, I think the most kind of tedious task, was updating their internship contact document. So every semester, whenever they're looking for interns, they will send emails out. And so I had to go through every university in the area and then go to the department, find the department heads of appropriate departments like political science or government or anything like that, all of the honors programs people, and update their contact information. So that was pretty tedious, but in between it was a lot of just news clippings, being informed, being involved, attending events virtually, of course, acting as a representative, helping with social media drafting. There was a very wide range of activities and I thought they were all pretty fun. Yes. Okay. So I see Julie asked a question, but I think Dr. Chapman, you fielded that one.
Could you maybe just to follow up on Julie's question, I think maybe you could tell us, she mentioned she was offered an internship, which could count as professional development. So, with your internship, you can choose. It doesn't have to be internship equals professional development. You can tell us basically which category you think it counts in. So can you kind of tell us about that negotiation?
Yeah. So when it comes to I categorize this internship as professional development because my ultimate goal is to work in policy and law. And that's very similar to what this congressman does. Although I don't necessarily want to go into government or representation, politics. It is aligned with my goals. And so that's why I chose to categorize this as professional development, because it was very applicable to my professional goals. Now, in regard to, for example, I know a lot of you are in Honors 101, and so you're kind of learning the difference between professional development and skill development. So the key area difference here and how you're going to categorize your internship, it really just depends on what you do. So if you do it because it's related to your profession and your career goals, professional development, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But in terms of, let's see, pulling it up, federal services and information technology. If that's not really an area you've ever gone into or it's not really your intended career goal, you could absolutely still have that internship. But, maybe that's more down the line of you're developing a very particular skill set unrelated to your profession. So it really just kind of depends what capacity you're working in, what your focus is in the internship. But there's a lot of flexibility in this. And if you guys are ever kind of confused and trying to figure out where exactly this might be incorporated as an experience, again, peer coaches, that's what we're here to help with. Did that answer the question, Dr. Chapman?
Looks like we have another question from Alicia. Says, what was your favorite part of the internship?
Yes. And then I did get a direct message, so I will hop on that one right after this. Favorite part of the internship. Ooh, I loved how informed I was about what is going on in San Antonio, because every single day I started out my internship by reading the newspaper and finding important articles for the congressman and highlighting the important aspects, because he's got San Antonio, he's got Austin, he's in DC, he's got a lot going on. And so my job was to make it easier for him to know exactly what's going on in his community, the community that he represents. And so in turn, I knew what building had been bought by what company for what kind of economic development. I heard about UTSA's expansion. And so that was just really so much fun to be involved. And I've continued that by reading the news. So I got a question, it was a direct message, and it says, what is the best way to develop a good relationship with a professor / faculty, especially in an online setting? This, let me just say, you are not alone. I have gotten this question many, many times, and I think it's something that a lot of us are struggling with right now, being in an online setting. So kind of the biggest tips that I would give is, one, of course, if your professor is hosting a class time and it's possible for you to attend. If you feel comfortable doing so, I personally always turn my camera on. And oftentimes I'm the only person in my class with my camera on. And don't get me wrong, it's awkward. Like It's awkward. But I enjoy having that interaction with the professor. They can see me nodding, yes, I understand, or like, okay, I'm a very expressive person. And just putting that face to that name, I think does a lot. Second thing is attending office hours. Again, if you can attend those office hours, going in, whether it's to talk about material that you're not too clear about, or even to just talk to the professor. I love going to professors' office hours and talking to them about any research that they're working on. Kind of what, if they're a faculty rep for a student organization, I will often ask them about that. And I've developed some really strong relationships with professors just because I went to their office hours and we talked about San Antonio's climate action plan, completely unrelated to freshman composition. And so making an effort to attend those office hours and if possible, build that relationship. And the final thing is, I guess, to just communicate with them. If they're not hosting regular office hours or if there's not that class meeting time, reaching out to them via email. I love reaching out at the beginning of the semester, introducing myself, letting them know who I am, what my major is, just letting them know I plan on doing well in their class, and reaching out any and every time I have any kind of difficulty and always saying, this is Jasmin, putting my name, and eventually they get to know me. Oh, okay, here's Jasmin, and they know who I am. So that's kind of, that's what I have off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Mrs. Lozano or Dr. Chapman, if you guys have anything else that you would like to add into that. Wow, we got some good questions.
I'll add in real quickly, and it'll kind of help one of the follow-ups, which is what are some tips you have for discussing a professor's research in their office hours? You kind of have to go read about it, right? So either you're reading about the issue that they work in, or a lot of times they have their papers. If you're a STEM student, for instance, they have it published and you can actually read their paper. This is important, especially if you're planning to join or want to join a research professor's lab. You can go read, an article that they wrote that's 20 pages, for example. So that way you really know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you just kind of have to ask, definitely do some research, but you kind of just got to bring it up, and you will generally find that professors are surprised, but they're like super excited and eager to talk about whatever it is that they're passionate about. Because if they're doing research on this and they're working on it, chances are they're passionate about it. Let's see. When you mentioned recommenders in drastically assisting your internship process, who can we consider? For example, do they need to be faculty and staff that are part of the institute? Well, I mean, it kind of depends. Some applications, depending on what you're doing, might specify, okay, we want one academic reference and we want one faculty reference. So it varies. For this, there was no really specification. So I tried to get a variety. I chose a professor who could speak really well to my leadership ability and my eagerness to engage from my civic ethos class. I chose a professor who I discussed research with, and we discussed my passion for the environment and climate change, so they could really talk about my advocacy and my passion and my willingness to learn. And then finally, I chose an individual who was both a professor, but also a mentor slash counselor slash work boss type thing. And so I tried to get that work reference in there as well. Of course, not everyone has a work reference, and that's okay. But it's just about kind of getting a variety in there if possible. And then depending, it depends on what the parameters of the application are. Can you tell me some details about the Career Center that helps you with the resume? Yes. So guys, there is something. It's called VMOC. You can go on there and you can upload we get it as UTSA students, and you can upload your resume and it will give you specific detailed pointers about like breaking everything down. Okay, yes, you've got keywords in here that show you're analytical. Okay, this is too wordy. You shouldn't use this kind of grammar. It breaks it down for you and tells you exactly what you need to fix and change, and it scores you. And so you can upload it, it'll give you feedback, you can update it, and then you can upload it again. It'll give you a new score, new feedback. So that was one of my favorite things. And then also, as Dr. Chapman said earlier, the Honors College has a template for a cover letter. And so I actually just use that template, almost like word, filling in the blanks, filling in my specifics. But I used, they have a lot of templates, and I am so unashamed of the fact that I straight up use the templates and follow them to the T. Made my life super duper easy and sounded great.
I want to add one other quick thing. Just going back to the conversation about your references and the people who spoke on your behalf. Note also what she didn't mention, which was grades. Like, I'm sure someone could mention that she got a good grade in the class, but that's not really what drives the conversation. So it's being able to form better contacts with faculty through talking about their interests, through talking about your interests, through them advising you. And that'll, if you're in courses where you're writing papers and things like that, that comes out a bit more than if you're in a class with multiple choice tests. But, just again, this whole process is so much more beyond grades. I think you want to prioritize these relationships just as much as you do as studying for that test.
Yeah. And, I mentioned my civic ethos professor was one of my recommenders. Well, it's a 50-minute class once per week, but I went to his office hours and I sat there for an hour and a half, like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And we talked about his research. We talked about advocacy. We talked about books and economics and all kinds of things. And just because we were able to build that relationship. And I'm a people person. I love interacting with people. And so it to a degree, it's something that I would want to do anyways, but then it just works out really well when you're like, oh, well, who could a recommender be? And you're like, this person knows me academically, but they also know me personally, and they can genuinely speak to my qualifications and my passion and my engagement, which for me personally, one of my, I would say, greatest attributes, if you will, is kind of that engagement. And so it's great to have someone who can speak to that. Let's see. How long does the processing of the application for development award take to calculate the day to begin the project that I will use the aid? Dr. Chapman, did you want to take that one?
Sure. So there's kind of two different things here, I think, in the question. So it's just for the development award. So we receive them every month, and we usually take around a week to review them. And we then make awards. The awards can be distributed in a number of different ways based on what the experience is. So sometimes we pay directly for a student's registration in a conference, something like that. Other times we award them a scholarship. Ideally, you're out in front of the experience that you're going to do, but we have had some situations where a student had completed it, applied for the development award, and then we were able to reimburse them the funds that they spent on that experience.
Are peer coaches and honors counselors open to being recommenders? As far as peer coaches go, I'm not too sure about that one. I might pass that one on. I will say, on the note of being honors counselor, I'll be straight up. Mrs. Lozano has been a recommender for me on many occasions. However, I have also taken 2 classes with her, and she is my supervisor as a peer coach. So I have used Mrs. Lozano, but keeping in mind it was in that academic and professional context. So I will let either Dr. Chapman or Mrs. Lozano field that question.
That's a really good question. Peer coaches really are not going to be recommenders because they are student within themselves. And recommenders that they're looking for are professionals in the field, academics in the field. They're looking for people that are, that is their job. They're not students. So if you're looking for recommenders, don't ask a peer coach, but you can certainly ask a peer coach how to maybe approach, how did they approach? How did they find recommenders? All the stuff that Jasmin covered, they can help you seek out those resources for it. But definitely, and kind of arcing back to Jacob's question earlier, I've been on a lot of different committees, whether it's hiring committees or it's review committees for scholarships, international programs, the whole 9 yards. it is really important, and I can't stress this enough, even as a recommender myself, we need to know you, because I have been through enough applications to say I can spot on tell very quickly when a faculty member knows the student and when a faculty member doesn't, because it's very clear in the letter. Those relationships that you build, they can actually really attest. Like the letters I wrote for Jasmine, I can say this is how she performed inside and outside the classroom, but personally I know her character and this is the things that she's done, and this is why I think she would be a good fit for this position. But you also need to make sure that you're asking the right people as recommenders. So for instance, if you're going up for probably one of Dr. Chapman's big national awards, you probably need to find a professor that has a terminal degree, that is an expert in the area or field, and somebody that has a little bit more weight, versus Jasmine, who went for an internship with Congressman Doggett. It was okay that I was able to write it because of my role with her, and they weren't looking for that kind of specific recommender, if that makes sense.
And then I'll also just add real quickly that whom you ask to be a recommender also depends on the position. So again, if you're a STEM student and you're looking to enter into some sort of research lab, maybe a professor who taught you in a similar subject is a good person, but maybe someone outside of STEM will not work. So you really want to think about what you're applying to and how the recommenders line up. And sometimes it will be appropriate to ask a counselor. And if you're a first year student, sometimes that will make sense. You want to think very intentionally as you become a second year student, third year student, and so forth, to really start building up this team of mentors. And this is one of the activities for the Honors 101 students that we did last week, which is building up mentorship and really thinking about who you need to surround yourself with so that when you apply for something in any of these SPICE areas or for grad school or for a job in the future, that you have people that can talk about you. So that's really gather this group together and bring them in onto your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of build off of that really briefly, we're honor students, guys, so we get first pick. Listen, I do so much research on the professors I choose before. They're not always very intentionally picked. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, all right, there's no one in particular, but I do, when possible, I definitely try and take classes with professors who have similar interests to me. Being in the College of Business, how do I find someone who's interested in policy and the environment? Well, you do some research and kind of get creative, and it's totally possible. So I'm very intentional about the people I take classes with. So we had one more question right here. Do you discuss the internship with an honors counselors before applying or after? Okay, this is a very good question. I'm really glad somebody asked this. Please get in contact with honors counselors, and talk to them about the experience before, during, after. I mean, you don't have to touch base with them constantly. You don't have to tell them every single little thing that goes on, but at least I think it is very, very advantageous to at least reach out to them. They've got those drop-in hours. Go in there. If you haven't already met that honors counselor, introduce yourself, let them know what you're doing, talk to them about it. I mean, first of all, they want to hear about it. They want to know what you're up to. They're excited for you. And then they can also help make sure that you're actually on the right track, because what we do not want is we do not want you to go through this whole fantastic experience and for whatever small, silly reason, it doesn't work out, and maybe it doesn't quite fit in this category. But if you do it like this, you just make one small adjustment, then it totally does. So having that communication, it's going to be better for them, because whenever the paperwork comes on their desk and they're looking at it, they can say, oh yeah, well, I know this person. I know the experience they're doing. And it also makes it easier for you. It just makes sure that every step along the way, you're making sure that you're going to get credit for this experience that you're completing. So I would definitely recommend at least letting them know, and maybe touching base with them once or twice, making sure that everything's still okay. Do not be afraid to ask them questions. Peer coaches, we're here to help. But if it's like a tougher question, academic counselors have got those drop-in hours, and that's what they're there for.
One quick addition too is that depending on what your major is, your major may have a space for you to count your internship as academic credit. This is outside of the honors college. This is in your major. So you want to have that discussion also with your academic counselor, academic advisor, about whether it can count toward your major, and there may be different requirements according to your college. So it could of course count for both honors and your major. So just have that conversation as well. Do your research, because we want you checking off as many boxes as you can. And again, there's lots of advantages to getting it to count for your major as well, if there's a spot for it.
Carla just asked in the chat, what was the name of the resume editor? So I will just write it, VMock, the letter V and then mock. And it is super duper awesome. It makes you sign in with your like UTSA ID and passphrase and all that, but it is the most awesome and incredible thing. It's absolutely fantastic. All right. Are there any more questions, y'all? Again, I'm so excited. We had 54 people, well, 51 attend. I'm honored you guys came to hear me talk about this. It's wonderful. I'm super excited you guys are here. If you guys ever have any questions, of course, I have my peer coach email. I've got my peer coach office hours on Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30. But if you guys are working through an experience and you want to kind of talk it through, make sure it's all good, you guys can send me an email. You can send any one of the peer coaches emails and we can help just talk it through, break it down, make sure you're on the right track. We're here to help, and we love you guys. We think y'all are the best.
And I want to advertise really quickly. We have, again, this is a series that we are doing. So on Friday, we have our next peer coach skill development workshop. This will be led by another peer coach. The details are here. The screen looks a little bit different on my end. You won't see change details or cancel event, but you'll see RSVP. So if you want to attend this one, you can check in Rowdy Link, RSVP the same way. And we hope to see you there. One last quick thing is that if you are in Honors 101, this does count as one of your peer coach meetings. For all of you in the Honors College, this does count as an honors event for the semester. And so we'll be adding your attendance here into the into your Rowdy Link attendance.
All right. Dr. Chapman, did they need to, drop their ABC 1, 2, 3 in the chat? No?
No, we have
Okay,
it from the
okay.
Zoom recording.